AARP Louisiana is right here in Baton Rouge and New Orleans. We have offices in both locations, and we support nearly 500,000 members across the state with information on financial security, health, and all those opportunities that we want to have to better ourselves as we get older. Today we are really talking about consumer identity theft and fraud. So many people report that their computer's been hacked, or they have gotten that telephone call or that piece of mail that conned them into giving out their MasterCard number or even their Social Security number. And so we want to give information to consumers today about how to protect themselves. And Frank Abagnale, people may really know him as Leonardo DiCaprio from Catch Me If You Can, the blockbuster hit from Steven Spielberg in 2002. We have him here tonight to talk to consumers about how to protect yourselves, the scams that are going on right now, kind of what the trends are across the country. I've learned so much here today about how to protect not only myself, but even my children, that their identities can be stolen as well. And oftentimes we don't think of even younger people's identity being stolen. So all the information that we're providing here will help for the AARP Fraud Watch Network.
What we try to do is educate people to the current scams that are going on, whether they be phone scams, robocalls, sweepstakes scams, email scams, grandparent scams. We basically give them the tools to say, when you receive this call or this email, this is a scam and this is what you do. And I have found personally that education is the most powerful tool to fighting crime. So if you can tell people, they will take the necessary steps to protect themselves. They just have to understand what it is and how it works.
The AARP Fraud Watch Network is designed to really have a consumer voice in how to protect yourself against fraud. Because wouldn't it be great if in Louisiana something happened to one of us, we could give the information to the Fraud Watch Network and everyone would be alerted about it. And that way we can stop fraud right in its tracks. There's power in numbers, so we can do it if everybody joins the network.
It's a lot different than 50 years ago, for example, when there were just con men having to deal one-on-one with an individual, and that was a well-dressed, savvy guy. Today, these people are sitting in a kitchen in Moscow with a laptop, scamming from thousands of miles away. So they have the email, they have phones, they have robocall, they have all kinds of technology. So certainly technology breeds crime, and criminals are constantly using it to get money, whether it be from businesses, governments, or individuals.
I've heard Frank Abagnale before, and he is fabulous. And fraud is something that affects everyone, and it affects young people, old people, but elderly people are particularly vulnerable because they are anxious to talk to someone and they can get their trust. So I think the lessons that he's going to give today are going to be invaluable in helping people avoid that trap of familiarity, which then can lead to fraud.
I think it's just invaluable that we have a nationally renowned speaker on fraud protection and identity theft here in Louisiana to talk to our members and others, the public, about how to protect themselves from identity theft, which over 1 billion people have had their identities stolen, and the prime targets are children. And the reason being that when these thieves of identity steal that information, they don't use it necessarily next year, 2 years from now, but they might hold on to it for 15 or 20 years. And so it's something that when your identity is stolen that you have to be aware of from now on. It's not a just one and done deal.
The most common scam right now that we see as we survey around the country, and AARP keeps up with these through their 40 million members, is that called the grandparent scam. And this is where someone gets a phone call, grandparent, they walk over to the phone, there's this caller ID, it says New Orleans Police Department. So they pick it up, says, this is Sergeant O'Reilly with the New Orleans Police Department. We've arrested your grandson, Robert Johnson. He was in a vehicle with his girlfriend, Carol Baines. He drives a Ford, they described the car. He was DWI. We arrested him. He asked us not to call his parents. He gets one call. He asked us to call you and ask if you will post his bail, because if he doesn't make bail in the next couple of hours, he will have to spend the weekend in jail. Well, how would I do that? We take a credit card and you can post your bail. Just give us your card number and we'll post a $500 bail on the credit card. I can't tell you how many millions of people fall for that scam. Now, later on, they say, well, how did they know? How did they know not only my grandson's name, but his girlfriend's name, what kind of car he drove? Because of social media. They went to Facebook, and the grandson said who his girlfriend is, said who his parents are, said what kind of car he drives, where he goes to school. So they have all that data when they make that phone call. So we remind people that, first of all, caller ID is very easy to manipulate, so you can't believe what it says when it comes up on the text. And two, you stop and you verify. So the proper thing would have been to take all the information, say, let me just call back, hang up, look up the New Orleans Police Department, call. They would have told you there's no sergeant by that name. They don't do that. They don't have everybody in custody by that name. And that have been ended, or simply called the parents and they'd have said he's sitting here watching TV or he's away at school. So it's the whole thing is to simply know to do that. But you got to understand that the majority of people, thank God, are honest. And because they're honest, they don't have a suspicious mind. So they're not sitting there thinking, well, now how could this be a scam? Maybe they're not thinking that way. But if you give them the tools to do that, there's nothing wrong with being skeptical. It's a virtue. So if you stop for a minute and think about it, and then you're able to go do something about it. Every day we pick up the newspaper and there's another breach. Let's see what I did with. There we go. So we have the Office of Personnel Management. When that breach occurred, these are all government employees. They said that there were 2 million federal government employees' information had been hacked and breached. When the reporter asked me that day about this incident, I said to him, well, what did they say? 2 million? Whatever they told you, take the number right now, times the number by 10, and that is a more realistic number. Sure enough, it turned out to be more than 21 million federal government employees' information that had been breached. They said 1.2 million fingerprints. It turned out to be 10.6 million fingerprints, now in the hands of the Chinese government. But who can blame the Chinese government? We opened the door, so they stole the information. If they opened the door, we'd have stole their information. It was because of a breach was occurred because someone failed to do what they were supposed to do and protect that data. Now, fingerprints are wonderful tools. As I told an audience earlier this evening, it's great. You go to a crime scene, you have fingerprints, you identify who belongs to them. As for a purpose of verification, they're not very good. Everywhere you go, you leave your fingerprints. On the glass you had a drink out of today. If I put that glass in my pocket, I have your fingerprints. Everything you touch, you left your fingerprints. So when you have an opportunity, I'd like you to take a gummy bear and just press your thumb down on that gummy bear as hard as you can until it makes a three-dimensional image of your thumbprint. Then pick up the gummy bear and lay it on your iPhone and it'll open your phone. So replicating a fingerprint is a very simple thing to do, and now those fingerprints are in the hands of someone that didn't need to happen. But when we look around today, there are 58 million phishing incidents in 2016, 5,000 new ones every single day. And of course, 90% of those attacks, cyber attacks, start with a phishing email. But they've gotten so sophisticated that I've read them that simply say, Dear Carol, great having lunch with you today. Enjoyed hearing about your trip to Disney next week. Please tell your husband Bob I said hello. Have a great time with the kids. By the way, I wanted to send you this link to this YouTube. I need you to check it out. I think you'll really enjoy it. Joan. So you're sitting there, so I just had lunch with her. She knows I'm going. It must be her. It's not her. We give out so much information that they just scoop that information and then create phishing material off of what you gave them to make it look like it's someone you know. When we look around at companies every day, no matter how big or how small, we find all these weaknesses in these companies. And they can destroy a small company. So the ones who are most at risk are small businesses, medium-sized businesses. They're the ones most at risk. And they're the ones that have to pay the most attention about protecting their business and their information. And the most important job any employee has is protecting the information entrusted to them by their citizens, their customers, etc., keeping that information safe. You know, if you look around here, you see that ransomware is everywhere because you downloaded a Mira app, you opened an email. Ransomware is simple, it's inexpensive, it's fast, it's easy, and that's why it's the most popular tool to place on other devices and get information or get ransom. And you look around your house, everywhere there are weaknesses. Your remote control for your TV is an access point. Your Samsung television. Your refrigerator because you wanted to have a computer in to tell you whether you needed milk or not. The truth is, I don't need my refrigerator to talk to my toaster. They've been getting along great for years without having a conversation back and forth with each other. Even your security cameras at your house that you say, well, I can go online on my iPhone, look at my house, see what's going on, so can lots of other people. These are all weaknesses points run by Wi-Fi that are easily accessed. And what happens here is, like any technology, someone invents it, they want to get to market as quick as they possibly can, and no one stops for a minute and says, okay, this is great, but let me ask you this. How would someone use this in a negative way? Let's look at that first, then solve that problem, and then put it in the marketplace. So if I want to have a device so I can go on Amazon and talk to it and say, order me this, am I knowing that device is not listening to everything I'm saying in my house, or has become a way for a hacker to listen to everything I say in my house? We don't think those things through, and that opens up all these points for people to get access and get information. Now we have medical identity theft. This is a newer crime of identity theft. I'm in New Orleans tonight. I break my leg. I have no insurance, so I go down to the hospital or the clinic. I tell them I'm you. I give them your name, your social security number, your date of birth. They treat me. They bill your insurance company. Later on, Blue Cross, whoever it may be, comes back and they either notify you they paid the claim or you owe a deductible, and you go, whoa, wait a minute. I've never been in New Orleans in my life, and I can tell you right now, I never broke my leg. Well, it's not that easy, because the people who are victim of this crime every day say they have collection companies calling them, they can't get it off their existing medical records, that it becomes part of their records, just another form of identity theft. Children. This is a great study done a few years ago by Carnegie Mellon. They went out across the country to 50 states to interview 40,000 random children they selected from all walks of life, from all age brackets, to simply ask the parent or the child, has someone stolen your identity? They were amazed that 10% of those children had had their identity stolen. Of course they did. There is no better victim than a child. So if you were selling an identity on the black market today and you said, in this envelope I have a 62-year-old male in New Orleans, multi-millionaire. He owns chains of restaurants, hotels, office buildings. I have all his data. All right, who's in this envelope? This is a 14-year-old boy, goes to school in the Jefferson Parish. He didn't have anything. I'll take him. Of course. He has nothing. He is not likely to seek credit. He's 14 years old. So I can become him for the next 4 or 5 years and use his identity before anyone ever knows I stole his identity. And that is why on the black market, a child just coming out of the hospital, and I have 5 grandchildren, I just had my last grandchild just a couple of weeks ago. When she came out of the hospital, they assigned her a social security number. If somebody got that number at that point, that would be worth a tremendous amount of money on the black market, because you could be that person for the next 18 to 20 years before anyone knew you had that identity or they would ever use that social security number. Now, I've been saying that for years, but I'm glad to say that last year the Wall Street Journal recognized that and said that children's identities is a big, big concern of having young people's identities stolen. Now, someone said earlier this evening, I wrote a book in 1988 called Crimes of the Next Generation. I was writing about crimes in the year 2000 and beyond, and I wrote about identity theft. So people said, how'd you know about it then? Because you wrote about they're going to steal people's identities, they're going to get credit cards in their names, they're going to get mortgages in their name, they're going to get jobs in their name, they're going to commit crimes in their name. How'd you know that? In 1988, no emails, no computers. Well, in 1988, identity theft existed. We just didn't hear about it because very few people actually did it. But in 1988, people would read the New Orleans newspaper and read that Robert Johnson was named Home Builder of the Year in Louisiana. When they read the article, they read that 10 years earlier he filed bankruptcy. So they'd take a stroll down to the federal bankruptcy court, they'd microfiche out a copy of his bankruptcy filing that had his wife's signature, his date of birth, her date of birth, his social security, her social security number, and they stole their identity. The only difference today is you could be in your pajamas in a house in Moscow and do the same thing on your laptop. All of these are accessible records online from anywhere in the world. So all technology has done is made it much easier, much faster, and the ability to do it from anywhere in the world. I'm not on Facebook, I'm not on LinkedIn, I'm not on Twitter, but as I mentioned, I have 3 sons, 5 grandchildren. They love social media, so as a grandfather and a father, I've simply said to them, sure, you can use it, as long as you use it correctly. So right now, we have 7.5 million children on Facebook under the age of 13 years old. We have an additional 5 million children on Facebook under the age of 10 years old. Last year, over 1 million children were bullied on Facebook. Many of them committed suicide without their parents knowing they were being bullied on Facebook. When you went to school, you were only bullied from 8 in the morning till 3 in the afternoon and not on weekends. Now you bully 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and that's difficult for any human being to take. But today, we have simple technology. If you simply Google what we refer to as creeper phone, that's a software. It's very inexpensive, but if I put it on my computer, your child has a cell phone, and they're on Facebook, then I know where your child is every second of every day, because it is nothing but a GPS triangular search tied to Facebook, the cell phone, and back to the software, an old police device used today by criminals to track people. If you go through the airport and I take a picture of you on my iPhone, there is a technology called PIT-PAT, P-I-T-T-PAT, P-A-T-T. You can Google it, developed by MIT but owned by Google. It gives me the ability to snap your photograph and in 7.5 seconds take me to your Facebook page through facial recognition, because all it is doing is scanning all the Facebook pages and takes me directly to your Facebook page. There is one besides PIT-PAT. There is a new one out that's Russian, but it's even more effective and more popular, and that's called FindFace. Does the same thing. So I tell a lot of young people, look, you never want to put a straight photograph of yourself on Facebook. You want a picture of you with your arms around your dog, a picture of you with your friends, you playing soccer, volleyball, shooting a hoop. Never a straight-on photograph of yourself, because there are too many facial recognition tools that can tie back to that photograph. You never ever want to state on your Facebook page where you were born and your date of birth, or you might as well say, come steal my identity. 2.7 billion hits. But when you say to Facebook, what do you do with all those hits? We profile them, bring them back to the user. So which means that in 6 months they know your gender, your age, your sexual orientation, your voting record, your IQ, your religion, your politics, whether you smoke, whether you use drugs, whether you use alcohol, because they want to market products to you. So they store that information and they use that information. Why you would want anyone to know all those things about you, I don't know, but we complain about identity theft, but we continue to give away more and more information about us, and your privacy is the only one thing you really have, and only you can control your privacy. This is a chat room. We monitor chat rooms at the FBI Academy in Quantico, Virginia. New agents who go through the academy monitor the chat rooms. I just took a snap off one of our screens. So you can see I blurred some of the information out, but they're selling credit card numbers, mother's maiden name, bank account numbers, security questions, social security numbers, dates of birth, driver's license numbers. All this information is for sale. People buy it, they profile it, they put it together, and they come up with the identities of individuals. But that's because the information is everywhere to be retrieved. When we ask a lot of identity thieves where you get a great deal of your information, they say use copiers. I go out and buy used copiers from suppliers, wholesalers, and then I take them home and I remove the hard drive. That's because since 2002, all digital copiers have a hard drive in them. So the question is, when you got rid of the copier, did you remove the hard drive? So if you didn't, that means they're going to remove it, and what they're going to do is very simple. They're going to put a plug in, there's a jack in there, they're going to put the plug in the jack, plug the other end into their PC, and then download every single thing you ever copied on that machine, driver's licenses, birth certificates, you name it, as with some fax machines. It all goes. So if you got rid of a computer where you still use a hard drive, you would get rid of the hard drive before you got rid of the tower. Same thing here. Now, the reason you see the CBS logo down there in the right-hand corner, Scott Pelley with the CBS Evening News a couple years ago found this amazing, so he said to his reporters, go out and buy some used copiers. So they went out, but they filmed it under hidden camera. They went to very legitimate companies, and you could see in rooms this big, they randomly picked them. I'll take that one over there. I'll take this one. I'll take this one. They brought them back to the studio. You're watching all this. They take the shrink wrap off of them. They pulled out the hard drive. They plugged them in. The first one belonged to the Boston Police Department's Sex Crimes Unit. The second one belonged to the California Department of Motor Vehicles. And the third one belonged to the largest insurance company in the Northeast. All you have to do is go to YouTube, to CBS Evening News digital copiers, and watch that 6-7 minute piece. Information is everywhere. It's just a matter of getting it. So when you get rid of a copier, you get rid of the hard drive that's in it, as you would your computer. Now, I would be remiss if I closed without telling you how to protect yourself, because the one thing about identity theft, as simple as it is a crime to commit, it's even a simpler crime to prevent. So I would ask you to only do what I do myself. Now, first of all, I have a shredder. I shred everything. So yesterday you got a catalog from Nordstrom's, you flipped through it, you didn't see anything you liked, so you threw it away. But on the back cover was your name and address, a barcode, a source code, and an ID number. That's more than enough for me to become you. Now, there are 3 shredders built in the world, 3 types. One's called a straight shredder. That's called a ribbon shredder. It cuts paper up and down straight. At the FBI laboratory in Quantico, Virginia, we put those documents back together in less than 30 minutes. We can shred the entire Wall Street Journal and put it back together in less than an hour. If we can do it, so can they. Many of you use a crisscross shredder. That's a most popular shredder. It cuts paper down to a little rectangular box like so. We use a software called ePuzzler. Allows us to put those documents back together again so we can read them. As we did in Enron, WorldCom, Tyco, Arthur Andersen, even though the auditors shredded warehouses bigger than this of documents in garbage bags, we put them all back together again for evidence in court. So when you go buy a shredder, you're not looking about who made the shredder, Staples, Office Depot, Fellows. You're looking on the box where it says type of shredder. And you're looking for micro cut shredder. Same price as the others, but that's a shredder that actually turns paper into confetti or about the size of a piece of rice. There is no technology to put that back together again. Same as prices as the other shredders. So we're looking for that micro cut shredder. If you're going to shred something, you want to destroy it permanently, that's what you're looking for. You know, if you went home tonight and took your credit card and put it in where it says insert credit card here, it can only slice it in 4 even slices. So the people who empty those garbage bags of shredding material, it's already sticking up. All they have to do is pick it up. They lay it on a table, push it together. They have your name, they have your number, they have your expiration date, they have your security code. They have everything on the card. If you put that card in a micro-cut shredder, you wouldn't be able to tell me what kind of card it is. You wouldn't know if it's a Brooks Brothers credit card, a Saks Fifth Avenue credit card, or a Visa credit card. So you want to use the right shredder. Second, I do use a credit monitoring service. God knows there's a lot of them. AARP has credit monitoring service through the largest credit bureau in the world. These services charge a fee. I've used one since 1992. So they charge me $12 a month. It goes on my credit card. I use it because I really don't need them, because for that $12 a month, this gives me the power to go on my computer and bring up my credit 50 times a day. Couple of buttons, and up comes my credit on the screen. All 3 credit bureaus, Equifax, Experian, TransUnion. At the top is my current score for that day, and all my credit I just scroll down to. When I get to the bottom, I see anyone that's made an inquiry on my credit, whether it be my employer, the IRS, my bank, my insurance company, or just Macy's, who I just applied for a credit card with. Whoever it is, I'm going to see that inquiry. But they're also monitoring it, and they're letting me know in real time if anyone is attempting to use my credit. So these credit monitoring is a good thing. There are lots of legitimate companies been around a long time. They all have great programs. Actually, LifeLock and Trusted ID, which is part of Equifax in Atlanta Credit Bureau, they do children's monitoring, $5.95 a month. So you provide them your child's social security number. They monitor that number. That number shows up anywhere for employment, for credit, for whatever purpose. They notify you in real time. So I do use a credit monitoring service. I recommend them. You find the one that fits your needs the best, but they're good to have. And you can monitor your own credit, or they're monitoring it for you at the same time. I don't write a lot of checks in today's environment. If I were to go to Walgreens tomorrow and write a check for $9, I actually hand the clerk the check. On the check is my name and address and phone number, my bank's name and address, my account number at that bank, my routing number into that account. That's your wiring instructions. My signature on the signature card at the bank. And then the clerk has written down my Louisiana driver's license and my date of birth. I don't get the check back. We live in truncation. I get an image of the check. The check goes to Walgreens in Chicago, where they warehouse it until they get to destroy it. Anyone who would see the face of that check, make a copy of it, write down the information on a postum, can draw against my bank account tomorrow. They can wire the money out of it. Or they can go online to what's called checks in the mail, order checks with their name on the check, but my account, so that every check they write debits against my account. And God forbid that you go in there and write that check off your money market account, your wealth management account, your private banking account, where you might have a great deal of money in that account. So I don't get over paranoid. I'm a little old school. I write a check to pay my mortgage. I write a check to pay my insurance company, my loan. But I'm very careful about where I write a check to in today's environment. And finally, I don't own a debit card. Never owned one. Never allowed my children to possess one. A long time ago, in writing a book on financial fraud, I asked myself a simple question: what is the safest form of payment that exists on the face of the earth? And the response was a credit card. Visa, MasterCard, American Express, Discover. Not credit debit, but credit card. Every day of my life, I spend the credit card company's money. I literally never actually spend my money. My money sits in a money market account. It earns interest. Nobody knows where it is. Nobody sees it. It's not exposed to anyone. I go to the dry cleaner. I give them my credit card. I pick up the groceries. I give them my credit card. I put fuel in my boat. I give them my credit card. I pay for the slip my boat sits in all year, and the marina bills it to my credit card. I get on the plane to come here this morning. I use my credit card. Now, I will do everything in my power to make sure nobody gets my number. But if they do, and tomorrow they charge $1 million on my credit card, by federal law, my liability is zero. I have no liability. When I use a credit card and I pay the bill or part of the bill that's due, my credit score goes up. So I'm building my credit as I go along. When you use a debit card, every time you take it out of your wallet, you're exposing only one person's money, yours. In every incident involving Home Depot, Target, the question simply was, what happened to you? I had a credit card at Target, so nothing happened. They canceled my credit card. 2 days later, they sent me a new credit card, and that was the end of that. What about you? Oh, no, I had a debit card. It took me 2 months to get my money. I couldn't pay my tuition. I couldn't pay my car note while they were investigating what was going on. You go to the Fraud Watch Network, and it's just aarp.org/Fraud Watch Network, or you can just Google Fraud Watch Network. It is truly the only source. I've been in government for 40+ years. It's the only source that you can actually go to where they've posted videos, they tell you the most latest scams going on, they put out literature. And if you have a question, maybe that night you don't know who to call, you can call their 800 number, someone will answer, you'll say, this is the phone call I got, this is the email I got, no ma'am, that's a scam. Do not respond to that email, don't do that. There's no charge, you don't have to be an AARP member, so it is a wonderful resource for people to use.
We have learned so much about how to protect ourselves from consumer identity theft and fraud. I mean, just the fact that you just should hang up the phone when somebody calls you and starts asking information. What's important is that you should hang up the phone and try and call that person back and verify their information if they're really saying they're an IRS agent or from the Social Security Administration. You have the power to call them back and to check on them. So it's about consumers getting the power back.
If people have questions like more information about AARP Louisiana, what should they do?
I encourage everyone to visit the AARP Fraud Watch Network online, or they can call the AARP Louisiana office, and we'll be happy to connect them with someone.